how this group call is going to go. I think most of you who I see here have been here before, but we might have some newbies. We're going to open up with wins. So what good's happening in the business, whether it's a small win, big win, we want to celebrate it all. You don't know who needs to hear it, especially your coach. And then we're going to go into the open Q&A. So I want you guys to go ahead and start thinking about questions. What issues are you running into currently, or maybe what learning took place this week? You know, if you could solve one thing in your business right now, what would it be? Let's ask a question about it. And so I want you guys to go ahead and start thinking about that. But without further ado, let's run into the wins here. What good is happening this week? You can either unmute, type it in the chat. We'd love to hear. Maria.
We're hiring a QuickBooks person. So that's 3 hires in 6 months.
That is super
I'm pumped. And now I don't have to do QuickBooks.
Yeah. Like, thank goodness. Yes.
So it's all good. That's a win for me, at least.
Oh my gosh. Yes. That's something where it's like, hire an expert to do it. You
Absolutely.
as the business owner, you as the office manager do not need to be learning how to do that. Know enough to be able to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do, but you do not need to be the one doing it. And Maria, were you guys able to find somebody through Indeed, or how are you guys still?
We're still searching through Indeed. We talked about it yesterday, exactly what we're looking for. So I'm going to make some calls today. So I'm excited.
Yes. Keep us posted.
Yes.
What other wins are happening today?
I would say a win for us is this is the first time in many years that we're booked out through the end of the year, which is really good because we're like getting into our cold time right now. So getting past all that, our bookings keep coming. And I think we are getting some of those Google calls, but I think word of mouth is helping out a lot too. So we're finally getting work pushed out there a ways. We're at least 45 days out right now.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Jason. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's even with kind of some price increases that we've been doing lately. And you're still.
Yeah, we're still working on some of that, getting our prices up there, and we're working on this cost plus deal, but yeah, it's been good.
That's exciting. Wow. Can't wait to hear how the year wraps up for you, Jason, and preparing for next year.
Yeah.
Awesome. What other wins are we having, guys? Clayton, you want to unmute for us?
Sorry, yeah. So we've got 2 more projects we're working on top of the 7 we're doing now. So we closed one this week. It actually closes Monday, and then we've got 2 more that are going to close by December.
That is awesome, Clayton. And I think that your hunting trip was pretty successful on Tuesday. Am I wrong?
Oh yeah. Well, I tried to share the picture, but I couldn't get it to share with us. So you'll have to share the one I sent to you.
Yeah. You got a pretty big deer from what I.
Yeah, I did. So that was a +2. Finally get to take some time off.
Yes. Love that, Clayton. Thanks so much for sharing. I see you, Dale, in the chat here. I just met with Dale Eads on Monday. And we were looking at his revenue. And this is a really neat win, guys. And for a lot of different reasons, but his total sales year to date is not as high as we wanted it to, and it's not as high as last year. It's pretty close to last year, but his profit is actually up this year, which is phenomenal. That's why you got to pay attention to your numbers and not just obsess over that revenue number, because ultimately, if we could do the same amount of work or even less work and make more money, why the heck not? Like, that's still a win. But if we were only paying attention to the revenue, Dale and I'd be looking at this year and saying, oh, shoot, what the heck happened? This year's worse than last year, but it's really not. We're running way more profitable. We're doing better work. We've got a better team. It's the revenue is kind of like doesn't matter, you know? And so that's why we've got to pay attention to both those numbers. You got to know those numbers. Dale, I love that you put that in the chat, because that is super exciting to see. And I can't wait to see next year once we add HVAC to your business. And so really excited for you, Dale. Thanks for sharing. What other wins do we have going on today? I see a few more people are popping on here. I know it's the week before Thanksgiving, and so I know it can be a little chaotic trying to wrap things up. On that note, as you guys probably guessed, we will not have group coaching on Thanksgiving. We will be prepping to be in a food coma. So you're more than welcome to be here, but we will not. So just reminding everybody, no group call on Thanksgiving, but we will resume the following week like normal. And the Redmond Growth staff will be in office Monday through Wednesday. So just don't hesitate to reach out to us on those days. We will be out Thursday and Friday. Be right back on Monday. What other wins are we having here today, guys? These have been some great ones, either in the chat or unmute. What's so funny, Maria, is your boss Riley yesterday made a very similar joke where he's like, gosh, I'm gonna have to return my turkey onesie since we're not gonna have group coaching on Thanksgiving. I was like, your guys' energy on your team is where I need it. It's where I want it. All right, guys. Well, if no more wins, let's go ahead and get into kind of the Q&A here. What issues are we running into? What questions do we have? Thoughts, concerns, grievances, or even what learning happened this week? I already see a hand up.
What you got, Lance?
Hey, morning, everybody. I have a question. So, for the past, we've been in business for like about 10 years or so, and we never have had an office. And, we have, I guess, like 5 employees. We're kind of scattered all over town. I'm just kind of curious what you guys think about the importance of an office. There's a lot of things I hate about an office. Like, I personally don't want to go to an office. But I guess, did we say it's like a huge difference in productivity? Is that, I'm just kind of curious what other people think about that.
Yeah.
So we used to have a shop and an office, and we downsized. We've got a tiny little shop now, but we kept the office space. And the good thing about the office space is I meet with everyone every morning, and just find out where they're at on each job, who's going to which job, and I think just kind of getting them all together and we also talked about a lot of the problems that they had the day before or anything like that, and just try some problem solving, I guess. So that's what I like about it, because it's pretty minimal. I mean, we're together like half an hour, and then everyone kind of goes on to their own job. So that's the part I like. It keeps me updated because I'm really not out in the field, what they're doing at each job, and then that way they're able to go out and do what they need to.
Yeah. It can totally work either way, guys. Like, there's no right or wrong here. What I would say for a lot of you is you don't have to have an office space. And definitely if you're not in like a financial place to do it, don't feel like you like need to, like that's something that you have to have in order to get to that next step, because it's not. Having an office person is something that can absolutely be done 100% remote. As long as you got Maria here who's able to do it 100% remote. We just need to make sure that there's accountability and there's good communication and a way to follow up. And to Jason's point, we love having daily huddles. We want you to be able to meet with your team, but you could do that in a Starbucks, in a Dunkin' Donuts, at the job site. Like, don't feel like you have to have a space. There are some times where there is a pro to that. Like Dale Eads with Arnold's Plumbing, he bought a shop a couple years ago. It made sense for them. He keeps the vans there. He has the office there, but his office gal still works remote part-time, and so does Dale. Like he's not in the office every single day as the owner of the company. And so you can absolutely implement the things we talk about with team huddles and stuff like that without having an office. So I would just kind of get with your coach, Lance, and talk about like, does it make sense for your business? Because there is no right or wrong here. It just kind of depends.
Yeah. I would add to that, there's a couple of guys who would say that even for remodeling companies, that having some sort of an office space is valuable, even if it's like a storage space for the extra materials you may have between jobs to keep those there, or to log up before you do a bulk set of returns on materials and stuff like that. It's how you use it for sure, but having that collection point, like Dale talked about in the chat, as well as it can be valuable. So I think that's a great question. But Laura, do you have comments on this as well? Anybody else?
Hi, good morning. I would just add, we've been on both sides. So we've been where we've had big commercial buildings, and then during the downturn of 2008, we couldn't afford that $6,000 a month rent payment. So we became a home-based contractor. And then, coming full circle, and now we're leasing a commercial building again. I think the most important for service-based is that you have community presence. I don't think the customers cared as much that we were home-based or that we just rented a construction yard to store stuff. But I heard a lot was, oh, we thought you were out of business. We weren't discoverable when we were working out of the house. So I think if you work from home or don't have a big commercial building, doing the things to nurture your presence within the community, whether it's the chamber or, participating in fundraising events and, that public kind of scene. I think that's what's critical to keep you out in front of the community that you're serving.
That's really good. Yeah, the other piece of that too is having a pin on Google Maps is one of the main values we see, I think, from having an office space, more so than like individual employee productivity and stuff like that. For service and construction type businesses, having that pin that pops there on Google Maps is really a value add.
Bryce, you mentioned utilizing a storage unit. We're getting ready to move from my father's former house, where we ran all of our operations out of, to a storage unit where we're going to park truck and trailers and operate out of that. But obviously you can't have your business listed. Well, legally you can't have it listed at the storage unit. So I still have it at my home listed there. What are your thoughts on the the virtual business listings that you can purchase in an area? Does anybody do that?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and speak on this. Nicole and Travis, if I start saying something wrong, correct me, because I feel like it's changed a couple of times on us where we've said virtual offices for sure, or no, definitely don't. So
I
Google,
love Dale's comment because I feel like we could like start and stop it there. It's like Google doesn't like it.
yeah, pretty much. Google has gone kind of back and forth where they've said, yeah, that's fine. And then they've also gone at times where that's something that will suspend your listing. And so it's a bit tricky to do that. There are some alternatives that have worked sometimes, but haven't worked every time, where I think with UPS, you can get like a suite number instead of like a virtual office space sort of thing. Yeah, it kind of varies. I'd be curious though, you can have a Google Maps pin at the same address for multiple things. I think Google's also aware with storage units that wouldn't be allowed, but you can still find a space that you can utilize as a storage unit. That's just kind of like an empty lot or something like that. Put up a tough shed that you put in for your office staff. I think that's a valuable part of this conversation too, for your question, Lance, is you don't have to have an office that can fit everybody on your team. You really don't need that, especially in construction side. At most, you have an office that fits 2 or 3 office people and then can be that collection point where you guys start doing your huddles and stuff like that and some storage.
That's helpful. Thank you.
It is helpful. I'm taking notes.
Cool. Any other thoughts from people that have done or haven't done an office, still doing the home setup if they've made a transition? Go ahead, Clayton.
So we we don't use an office. And one thing that I find that's really difficult is meeting people. A lot of people that we do custom homes for are looking for a place to, come find you or come in and talk to you, sit down and go through all your products and stuff. And, it's kind of hard. That's the hardest thing that we have is figuring out, because either I got to carry it with me, and meet them at their property or meet them somewhere, or they got to come to my house. So that's a difficult thing for us that we're dealing with right now.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jordan.
We are in the process of getting a building as well. Like, we're at the final stages of it, and it was like really laborious because we went through the SBA to get the loan. So there were some benefits to that. There's a lower down payment, only 10% down payment, and the amortization on the loan's 25 years, which is good. And it has a slightly lower interest rate than standard market value. But it has been a process to get the loan. I mean, it's been going on a lot of man hours put into getting that loan. But I felt for where we were as a business that it's very difficult to manage material and employees, trying to just like meet in parking lots at supply houses, and very difficult to keep things inventoried, people on track. I felt for our purposes, we needed like a central location where vans and people could meet in the morning, get their stuff, get their marching orders, and then move out. And when we were like really small, or we still are really small, but with just like 2 crews running, like it's probably manageable the way we are, but where we want to go, it would be not possible. And based on what it's like with 2, if we were to make that 4 or 8 or 10 crews out there working, I don't think it would be possible to just manage that with everybody having a take-home van and no central location.
Yeah. Brandon, what you got?
We're in the middle of this too.
Wow.
The company's 2 years old, and we started out of my house. I went and got a co-working office in a zip code that we wanted to market in, that I work out of part of the time. And then we have an oversized storage unit that we use for a shop. So I meet the guys every morning at the shop, and they're starting to get to the point where they're independent. They're having their own meetings, and I can just check in with that. But the home builder that owns the shop complex is building an office building right next to it that we're going to get an office in as well. And I would just say, if there's a benefit from a Dream 100 perspective to get an office next to someone who is going to send you business, that's entirely worth the cost of that office space. So we're going to end up spending $600 a month to have an office space in the inside of their office, but they no longer do remodeling, and they would love to have a remodeling partner that they can send work to reliably, that is willing to invest in appearing in a way that works with their clients. And they work with upscale clients that build big houses, and they want someone in there who's willing to make the investment to be cohesive with their brand. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm securing that office. It just came to mind, like there's benefits out of having an office in a certain location outside of just what it'll do for your internal operations. And we'll do all of our office admin and pre-construction and estimating out of that office. It's not necessarily for our field guys, but I would bet that we'll probably get $200,000 to $300,000 worth of work a year from having that office location with that partner. So I would consider that too. If there's someone in your Dream 100 list that you want to do more business with, and you can get a location close to their office, it makes you that much easier of a referral. And it's got to be somebody that you want to do a lot of business with. But that was something that came up for us.
That's huge.
That might be good inspiration, guys, where if you are currently in office space and you have never talked to anybody around you, any of the businesses near you, it is worthwhile Dream 100ing to them, you know, even if it's not even relative to your business. You just pop in with your one sheets or your business cards and some little bags of candy or donuts or something, just saying, hey, you know, we've now introduced ourselves. So happy to be here and meet you guys. If you are ever looking for any electrical work or remodel or whatever, we would love to be considered. But in the meantime, enjoy this. You know, you never know what's going to come out of those relationships. And that's just such an easy way to network and build that. So if you currently do have an office space and you've not met your neighbors, meet them. Use that inspiration.
Yeah, that reminds me too, on an office alternative kind of thing, to still get to Laura's point too. Roger with Rogers Plumbing in Austin, what they did was through a Dream 100 connection, they stored their vehicles at this place. They didn't even have to end up paying rent. They stored their vehicles and were allowed to put up a sign that they used for their office address. But it was because of contributions he made to a charity and kind of this whole web of stuff. But that is also kind of an office alternative, thinking about the Dream 100 portion of this stuff. So really great question. Great discussion too. What other stuff is running on people's minds? Any other issues, questions, thoughts?
I've got one quick question. Nicole and I have talked about this briefly, but I meet with Shane Tuesday, I believe. So in October, probably a little before October is when we really started getting busy. But I was looking at October numbers, and we received in, so we always take 50% down. So we take those checks, but we haven't bought any of the materials. But the way Builder Trend works is it kind of takes that money and it sets it aside for those materials. So in October, I had really great numbers because I had all of these materials that had not been billed out yet. And so I was just asking, like, anyone that handles materials like that, like for remodeling like we do, should we hold those checks? Should we not enter those checks until we go to get the material? Has anyone else ran into anything like this?
So we take deposit checks before we even start the job, or when we get them scheduled, and we just purchase the materials right there and stash them. It kind of helps with the cash flow balancing, I think. I don't know if there's a better way, but my fear, it would never happen, but in my back of my mind, my fear is, what if I go through and spend that money and we go to do the job and we're like,
right,
what are we doing now? It's obviously, we're not in that boat, but that's from the beginning. Back in the beginning, that's how it was. That's how I did think, and so we've just kind of stuck with that process. So we purchase it when we get the deposits for the materials.
So do you have some months that show a lot of profit because you haven't billed out those materials?
Yes,
and you just kind of play that up and down game each month. Then, okay.
Yeah, especially in the slower months, I see it really hit. And I'll purchase materials. I purchase like bulk materials, and so those months you take a hit. And I'm trying to get better at having it all sold at the end of the fiscal year, so it shows profit on paper. It's kind of the strategy that I'm working here. But I don't know if there's a better way also.
Okay.
What do you have to say, Lance? I saw you unmute briefly there.
No, I was going to say, I guess we've always done it that way. Yes, like you just said, Jason, we have those up months where there's like crazy revenue comes in, and then the next month we might even be negative because that's when you start paying out on the job or something like that. But what we've always done is we did our books quarterly. So we kind of reconciled it all quarterly and didn't really look at it like a month to month or a day to day type of thing. I didn't even realize it was like a problem until start looking at it from Redmond's perspective. But
right. Okay.
Yeah. And I would say to that point, it's not that Lance's books are ugly or gross. I mean, we would all like to see consistency, right? That it's predictable month to month. What's our relative income going to be? What's our relative net profit takeaway is going to be? I would err as far as how to utilize those deposits. So profit first, would tell us that we would use like a drip account, not for bookkeeping purposes, but for just money management purposes. So the drip account is where you get that large deposit from a job and you put the money there separate to kind of your regular income and your regular allocations. And then you would pay yourself out portions of that for however long that deposit's supposed to cover the duration of that project. So if it's a $10,000 deposit and it's 5 weeks worth of work that's supposed to cover, instead of putting the 10,000 straight into your account, you'd put it in at $2,000 increments each week to be more consistent with that cash flow. But with those deposits, especially if it's your initial materials deposits, I would err on the side of what Michael said, which is to go ahead and purchase those materials. Spend the money so that the price doesn't change by the time you actually come around to get it. But two, you can purchase that and either have it set for a delivery date of whenever you want them to be on site or for a pickup date of whenever you expect to actually go for it. The money's going to be spent and it's there, and then it would be in the same month of when you got the deposit versus when it was spent. And that would look right for your bookkeeping purposes. But Shane may have a different strategy whenever you meet with him. He's going to do things right from the tax perspective and the actual financial documents perspective. That's just from my perspective and from revenue growth, kind of incorporating some profit first principles in there. That's what I think we would say. Travis or Nicole, if you have any corrections on that, of course, let me hear it. Laura loves Shane. Yeah, we're glad to have you guys being able to work with him. Okay. Any other thoughts or perspectives on that one? How to manage kind of material deposits or just deposits in general? Sweet. What other thoughts, questions do we have? Anything else? Go ahead, Jordan.
Jason. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, you're muted, Jordan.
Does anybody use Profit Rhino with House Call Pro? Like, we just started working with it, and I've gone through some of the stuff. This obviously in the electrical world, but I haven't fully implemented it yet. But I'm wondering just what your experience was with it, what it was like to train your guys using it, how you trained your guys to use it, that sort of thing.
Man, Dale, we need to get you a microphone and just buy it and send it to you. So you don't have to keep going through the chat. But Dale with Arnold's Plumbing says he does. I know he's not here this morning, but Travis, your guy, Jordan, I think does as well.
Yeah, Elevation Plumbing actually is in the middle of making the switch as well. Really, as far as the main thing is just going through, making sure that the price book, you fine-tuned it, you've made it work for you guys. And then your question as to like how to train your guys on it, is it more the how to implement flat rate pricing, or is it like the actual technical how to use the software?
Yeah, I guess both. Just like, I guess that's part of the problem with like not having an office space at this point, like, we basically like sent out, hey, everybody use this House Call Pro app, but now we need to like bring everybody together to show them how to use it, and I don't even 100% know how to use it. I mean, I've screwed around with it quite a bit, but like, I'm still working on learning how to get proficient with it,
Excuse me.
It's just going to be stumbling through it, Jordan. Like, it's just going to be, you're going to have to commit to knowing it yourself, to using it. Change is really hard, and you're going to want to resort back to old ways, but like getting really stubborn about learning how to use the software. And if you know how to use it, you'll be able to train your guys on how to do it. And you don't need to have an office space to do that. It's like, hey guys, let's meet at blank and let's go over this together. And then you're going to have them run a job using it, and they might have questions. It might be slow at first, but it's just going to be a matter of committing to learning it. and then just being like, okay, this isn't going to be perfect, but we're going to work through it together and we're going to be stubborn about it. You know, like we can't wait until we feel like we're experts in it, because you're never going to feel that way. Change is really hard. You're not going to feel confident in doing a new system. And so you're just going to have to start doing it, you know, and committing to stumbling through it and learning it, and committed to holding your guys accountable to it too.
I do think what you mentioned, Jordan, as kind of this is a more to manage or more to do with it, is actually the way to handle it, and really the most valuable thing, which is to have a training meeting. Like schedule one big meeting that says, hey, this is our implementation from here forward. We're doing House Call Pro with Profit Rhino. This is how you use it. And Laura made a good point too, that in the chat, if you're seeing her stuff, that House Call Pro does have good training on that. Invest the time it takes for you to learn it so you can take it to your team, or even ask your rep if they'd be willing to do it during that team meeting that you set, you know, that one big implementation meeting, to say, hey, would you mind either recording a video or being on a video call with us and our team to kind of train us and onboard us onto it. I think that would be super valuable to you. And it's a totally normal and a really good practice to have even regularly in your business, just that weekly, everybody together, overall training time on what are the most important things we're focused on, you know, this week or this month as a company.
Yeah.
I love
And
Laura put in the chat, sorry, Travis, but she just said that she lets customers know, hey, we're onboarding a new software. Thank you guys so much for being patient with us. That's not a bad thing to say. Like, don't feel like there's any shame in that. Like, customers will appreciate that you are being honest with them. And, oh, absolutely, we completely understand. You know, like I would be candid. Like, hey, this is a new software. We're going to roll through it. I appreciate you being patient with me. And feel confident to tell your guys they can say the same thing too. What we don't want to do is be like, oh gosh, the boss is making me do a new software and it's just slow. You know, like that's not the attitude we want to bring. But telling them in a kind way, like Laura put, is totally okay. You're just being honest with them, and customers will be understanding. And I see a lot of people in the chat saying practice it. You feel good about it, role play through it, make sure your team does the same thing. And House Call Pro does have a lot of training available for yourself, and that you can send your staff through, and you can hold them accountable to doing that training. Travis, go ahead. I know you had something.
I was just going to say, a lot of times onboarding onto really any new software, but especially House Call Pro does a great job of support. A lot of people underestimate how willing your rep is to help you with questions and implementation and things like that. So don't hesitate to reach out to them, because a lot of times they can help you with a lot of that stuff. We just have to ask.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Great question. It's really valuable for a lot of people, I'm sure. What else do we have going on? What other questions or things are you guys running up into towards the end of this year here? Go ahead, Josh.
Hey guys. I was wondering if anyone had any experience with SketchUp for design and for rendering, and you know what their background was with it and what their training was involved with it. We're sort of new to it, and we just invested a lot in being able to give better designs and better drawings for our shop and everything. Just trying to figure out how it works and get some training on it if it's even necessary. I know there's a lot of free information on YouTube for stuff like this, but
yeah, it's like Clayton's got his hand up. Go ahead, Clayton.
We don't use SketchUp, but we use a deal called ArcSight, and it's probably the most simple thing to use when you're doing small renderings and stuff for customers. It's nothing like using CAD, or SketchUp is close to CAD. I mean, it's as close as you're going to get to being CAD without being the CAD program. But ArcSight, you can do it on a tablet and draw it just like you normally would, just sitting at the house doodling. And it's very simple to use. So we use ArcSight.
Josh, you said you already invested with
Yeah,
SketchUp?
yeah, I'm already pretty deep in this stuff. And now I'm just trying to figure it out after the fact. But what was it? It was Arc Site.
Yeah, Arc Site, and it's cheap. It's like $160 a month. Get you everything you need. You can draw stuff. You can make your own drawings and things that you need. They have a ton of different material on there, so you can use what they got, or you can make your own, and you can make a set of blueprints if you're decent at drawing. In a matter of 30 minutes.
Yeah,
It's pretty simple to use.
Yeah, I might have to use something like that in the meantime, just for the interim while I get trained on this stuff if it's that simple. So I'll look into that. Appreciate it.
We use I did the same thing you did. I bought SketchUp and then started trying to use it, and I was like, this isn't gonna work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little intimidating. I think we'll get a lot of value out of it, and even if I have to pay and it looks like I might, $800 or $900 for proper training on it. There's some good courses that I've seen. Again, it's not cheap, but I'm sure it'll be worth it. So
That's good advice for any software, anything that you're learning to use. There are usually representatives, there's training. They want you to like their software and they want you to use it. And so take advantage of the training, take advantage of the representatives. And I like to prep clients for this. If you're going to invest in a software or something like this, if you're not prepared to go through the training, then don't get it. Unless you're prepared to really commit to the training and learning it, it's going to be a waste of time and money. And so just commit to doing it. And it will take time. It's hard. It's new and it's practice, and it can be very frustrating. As I've been sick all week, I've been learning how to crochet, and I've got about 4 very lumpy scarves. If anybody wants them, can send them to you. Give me your address. But I'm learning that myself, where I'm like, we're just going to have to practice through this and be patient, which is hard.
I think Travis would look good in those scarves.
One's like a burnt orange, so it'd really bring out his hair and beard. So maybe he'll get that one for Christmas.
You beat me to it. I was gonna say, as long as they're not orange or red, I might rock it.
Nicole, look at my mascot. I made it.
my
He's
gosh.
crocheted.
Oh my gosh, you are far advanced from
And
me.
look, he's got his
Wow.
cup of coffee.
You two are peas in a pod, man.
We are.
Ridiculous. Anybody else have experience with SketchUp or anything like that to offer some insight? Sometimes with software questions, you may or may not have had somebody with some experience unless it's one of the really big ones. So there may not be anybody else that's used it, but that's where Nicole's advice is really true. Just no matter what it is, what we know to be true is investing the time is going to be worth it to make the most out of that.
Also, general speaking, Josh, I don't have any experience with SketchUp, but we started using a CRM and I went all in on it, and I was the one who started it. I would say that was my biggest mistake. Whomever's going to be using it the most, get them in the very beginning when you're figuring it out, because when you figure it all out and then you have to teach it again, you're going to be the go-to person for the rest of time. So that was a mistake I made.
That's
advice.
Great advice. Wow.
Especially a lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't want to hire my office manager until I've got my software fully learned or my CRM fully. It's like, no. Let's hire the office manager and have them learn it with you, because you need that accountability. You need that partner. You need somebody else who is going to be somebody you can go to questions. And, Robert could explain something to Bryce and Bryce is going to get something different out of it than I will, and so having that partner with you that can really help you is so key. So don't let that stop you from making that hire, have them learn it with you.
Yeah. Looks like Dale had a question for the group. I'll ask out for him. He said, are you guys paying your staff holiday pay for Black Friday? Anybody want to throw some 2 cents that way? Go ahead, Jordan.
We're giving Wednesday through Friday off and paying 2 of the days.
Dale, are they working on Black Friday? Like, are you saying, hey, my staff will be working on Friday? Do I need to pay them more? Is that kind of what you're asking? Or are you asking, hey, should I give them holiday pay for Black Friday, even though they're off?
They're
Okay,
off.
they're off. I think that can totally be up to the business owner. I don't think there's a right or wrong there, Dale. And I think that a lot of people are going to give you a lot of different answers on what they're doing. I know that because I'm sick, I had to reschedule my cleaning service that was supposed to come this week. And I was shocked when they rescheduled for next Friday because I was like, oh, I guess they're working. It's not a holiday, So I think it just really depends on the company if they even recognize that as a holiday or not. But I think in general, for a lot of companies, it's like, hey, if you want to take Black Friday off, you can, just let me know. I don't think it's overly standard for that to be a typical day off. And so whether you want to pay them or not, I think is completely up to you. But I would make a decision this week so that you can tell them, before going into Thanksgiving week.
I don't think Black Friday is a bank holiday either, if that's helpful to know. Because banks typically take as many holidays as they can, but Black Friday is a normal working day for them. Yep. Yeah. Very true. Okay. What?
Because I know you, I would just ask Zach. Zach is going to have a more idea with the team. Zach is Dale's son who leads the guys, and kind of just see if they're wanting that day off or not, and if they're expecting pay or not. And I would just talk with Zach and make a decision from there. But again, I don't think there's a right or wrong here.
Yeah. Any other questions here? What other questions?
I had a question for, I guess Jason's kind of dealing with this booking out. I think he said 85 days in advance. This is our busiest time of year and we start booking out, but people don't love to hear, hey, we can get to you in like 2 months. Do people give discounts for the further out you book? Is that a thing? How are you guys managing that?
We've been
worry on the clients.
Yeah, we've been fortunate enough to where we really haven't had that pushback. It's stuff that needs to get, they want it to get done. Some of them want to get it done before, say, Thanksgiving or before Christmas, and we're kind of working the schedule for them. But some of it is just like, hey, we want to replace all our carpet with LVT or something like that. So just whenever you can get to it. And we haven't had a lot of pushback on that. We've had to reschedule a few things as far as move them up just to make sure that we can accommodate, they're having a lot of family over or something like that. But so far we've not had that pushback yet. So we're not giving discounts or anything.
Yeah, in some regard, you could do it the opposite way, Michael. If you are having stuff like that, say, hey, we can fit you in sooner, but this would be the price for that because we'd have to move around these other projects. I don't know if that's the best from a perspective of the people you already have closed, right? But that's something that could vet some of those leads and say, hey, look, this is the reality. We can schedule you out this far. It's not necessarily an urgent project, but if you really want us to do it, you can either schedule at this price for the time out here, or that would be the kind of reality. But I wouldn't throw that out as like this is something we really want to do, is start, charging people and then moving out the people that have already paid around, because that would probably hurt you in the long run.
Yeah, or overbooking. Yeah, I hear you. It's not a bad idea though.
That I talked to a client about yesterday that I just feel like I haven't talked about in a while or heard us talk about is if you are booking like 45 days out, that probably means that like the materials for that job, you're not going to need ordered until you get closer to starting that job. So you might not take like the deposit, like you're getting ready to start the job. You might wait, until you're getting ready to start that job. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't take some type of deposit to reserve their spot. So whether it's like $200, $500, you just need to have some skin in the game. And all that is to reserve their spot. And you can say, hey, that's going to get taken out of your, like, that's going to count towards your deposit once we go to collect to start your job. And then of course we want to, before we go start that job, we want to get the main deposit so we can order materials and make sure the money stays ahead of the work. But just wanted to let you guys know that, let's not do verbals. Verbal means nothing. Make sure you get a signed contract and you get a deposit to reserve that spot. I wouldn't just, Michael, be like giving discounts just because you feel bad that they're booking so far out. What I would do is kind of a standard, and to kind of push people towards making a decision, is, hey, if you guys decide to move forward today, I'll be able to give you a blank discount or a blank amount off if you guys are able to sign and give the, deposit of $200 to reserve your spot. And that kind of is a nice little incentive. I know when I got my house painted, that's what really sold me on the painter, is he was like, if you sign today, and I was like, I'm a sucker. Yes. But it does give that little initiative, to get them to make a decision. But definitely if you're booking far out, we've got to make sure we're getting contracts signed and getting a deposit to reserve that spot. Otherwise it can just be chaos.
Yeah. To that point, as well, knowing what your sweet spot is in terms of how far booked out you get, there is a legitimate aspect to that, where if you're really just booking everything, if you're closing 80% of the jobs you go on, you really need to look at your pricing and make sure that you're doing that right and putting in the profit margin that you need, because no one's that good. If you're closing 80% of your jobs, not as a service company necessarily, but if you're closing that high as a remodeler or a contractor, that's a good warning sign that you probably need to do some sort of a price increase, because you're way underbidding for the quality you're providing if everyone wants to go with you.
Yeah, and just to emphasize, 80% is pretty high for a remodeler, but that's pretty average, or kind of what we're shooting for a service company, if not higher.
Right.
Unless you're doing like big commercial jobs or big, remodels or stuff, you might see a lower closing rate for those types of things. But if it's normal repair service calls, you should be 80% or above for sure.
Yep.
What other questions do we have here today, guys? Concerns, grievances, thoughts?
Yeah. Lots of good stuff we've worked through. Lots of good questions. All righty. If everyone feels good and happy, then we won't make it carry on if we don't have to. So again, reminder, next week we are not going to be meeting for this call because it's Thanksgiving Day. We want you to spend time with your family, and we'd like to as well. So not next week, but week after that, back things as normal. And we are going to be working pretty much the rest of the week. So reach out to your coach if you have any further questions, stuff that needs to be to clarify. So I want everybody to go ahead and unmute if you're able, and we'll say growth on 3 and launch into this next week, and wish you happy Thanksgiving. All right, 1, 2, 3, growth.
Bye, guys. Happy Thanksgiving.